Linux group on April 26, 2022. Tonight we're going to have Bob Premick speak on a couple topics. I'm going to cover Lastpass as a password manager, and I'm also going to sorry about that. Hang on a minute. Come on. I got a stuck switch. I'm not sure what this story is. Okay. Sorry about that. Sticky switches. All right. Anyway, we're going to start off with tips and tricks. So my first question to the floor is, does anybody have a Linux based tip or trick that they want to share with the rest? Man, the noise is deafening. All right, well, I'll get into one thing that I was hoping to do just a tad later as a tip and trick, and I got to nuts, did that out of sync. All right. And okay. Now, how many of you know how to upgrade your Zoom when the update software in Linux does not always update Zoom? I have some that update Zoom, and I have others that do not. Mint.
Are we seeing the correct screen?
I hope so. I see
We
it
just
on,
got a white with a box in the middle.
That's right.
Okay.
I use a extension that puts tabs to sleep. This is asleep right now. Now this is untangled Chromium. It can be additional privacy by not attaching to much of anything with Google, like normal Chromium and Chromium apps by other people. I have extensions, but extensions are the tough nut to add into the untangled version. But getting into the Zoom to update it in Mint, it's not being updated automatically. This is basically the Zoom download, which you can use something just like this in Windows and Mac. You go to zoom.us/download #client. And in Linux, in this download here, these are all the various versions. Ubuntu, basic Debian, which Ubuntu is based on. Mint, which is based on Ubuntu, which is based on Debian. Oracle Linux, CentOS, which is really a dead product. I can't believe anybody's still using it, but Red Hat, Fedora, OpenSUSE, Arch, and I don't know that it will do all Arches or not, and other Linuxes. So it covers what I consider the four major groups of Linux. The Debian-based Linuxes, the RPM Linuxes like Red Hat, Fedora, OpenSUSE, Gecko, to name a few, and the Arch ones. Arch itself is a non-graphical command line OS, but a lot of Arch-based distros are out there where some individuals said, I don't like it plain Arch. It's hard to install. They've made it so it's easy to install. You have a graphical user desktop, and they add in varying degrees of software applications from very sparse to full-blown. Here's everything you might really want, and if you don't like something, you can uninstall it.
Is
And
this what you would do if you wanted to download Zoom to host meetings?
no, this is the client, so that everybody who is here at the meeting now would be attending as the client. For the hosting, you can still use the same version in a limited fashion to be your own host for 40-minute segments. Then it shuts you off. You have to log back in to continue another 40 minutes, and you keep doing that, except when it's a one-on-one meeting. So if there were two of us in a meeting, it's unlimited because it can be used as a tool for remote troubleshooting tech support. So generally speaking, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select Mint. It wants to know, is this a 64-bit version versus a 32-bit? You have to go back to, I'm pretty sure, Mint 14 or older to have a 32-bit version. And then it's based on version 18 or higher versus 17.1. Current version of Mint is 20.3, if I remember right. So you're really getting the 18 plus version, and you just click the download button. It's downloading. It shows down here because this is a Chromium base versus a Firefox that doesn't put it downstairs. Now it's complaining this could be harmful to your computer. It's to make certain you are the person in charge. You know what you're doing. I'm going to say keep. And then I would bring up, I hope, this is, oh good, hey, this is working a little better than I was hoping. I'm going into Home, Downloads folder, and this is the one I just downloaded for you. This is the one I downloaded earlier today. All you have to do to install this is right-click on the download, open with the installer package, and it will try and install the package. Now, in most cases, it will install even though you're in the Zoom. But to get the newest version, you have to totally exit out of the existing Zoom if it's running. That means you got to log off of Zoom. And some of you may or may not know how to do that. Now, this is saying, do I want to reinstall instead of install? If I was putting on Zoom for the first time, it would say install. Since I've already had at least one package out there, it'll always say reinstall. If I click this, it'll go through the reinstall process. When it's done, it'll ask you if you want to launch it. I'm not going to go that far. I don't think it's a necessity to do it. So this gives you a idea of how to get this updated. Now, my prior version was 5.9.1, which was still working fine. But I knew there were updates. I knew this thing on Mint was not updating through the normal updater application. So I went out there, I downloaded it, and I installed it just the way I showed you. But I had to totally exit out. And if I bring up this screen here, if I were logged in by myself, it's saying right now I am at 5.10.4, which is the latest in all the different types of computer operating systems they
Tim,
support.
that pop-up menu is showing up as a black square.
Yeah, I know. I see it on my other screen. And there's no way of really showing it without resharing.
Share the full desktop, the whole desktop.
It was. Not a joke. And it still shows
okay.
up black.
All right.
Anyway,
that's the way it is.
Basically all it is the standard, it says Zoom. At the bottom it shows the version that's installed right now. It asks you if you want to join a meeting or sign in. If you click sign in, you put in your email address, you put in your password, and it will bring up a screen. I wonder, no, I don't think, I'm not going to try it, because if I try it, I know we'll end up with a disaster. But generally speaking, it has a bit of a peculiarity. You get a screen. It could be squarish or look like what you might see on an iPhone as far as a tall rectangle. And you've got two little items up in the upper right corner. One of them is your initials. If you click on that one, you'll get down near the bottom of the drop-down menu, sign out option. And you'd click that, and you're totally out of Zoom. So that now, if you relaunch Zoom after installing a new version, it comes up the new version. But until you do that, it always will use the old version until you sign out of it. So that may be required. If you do a reboot or a restart, that's the same thing as completely logging out, and it will come up with the latest version you just installed. Now, does anybody else have a tip? I got one other one. And this one I learned at another meeting. Hang on a minute. And let's see if I can share that. Okay. I know you can see that. This is, again, to have some familiarity with Windows. I call this File Explorer. Some call it just plain Explorer. It gives you folder views and other devices, what devices can be seen on the network, and then detail information per folder. Well, if you go up to View, no, Extra pane. If I click on that extra pane, I now have two views of content. And this allows me now to easily transfer files from one view to the other view. So if I open up downloads, and let's just say for the sake of argument, I open up over here documents, I can transfer files from one to the other. But right now, I haven't gotten that little trick to work yet, because it wants to say download in both. What I would prefer is being able to transfer from one area of the drive or another drive to a different one. And it's something that I've got to play with a little bit more. I didn't realize this happened to exist, to have the double view. And all you got to do is go in here and uncheck extra pane. It's back to a normal single pane like we have in Windows. Now what's eventually coming, at least in 11 on Windows, and might filter back to 10, is tabs. And in the Explorer, tabs will give you the ability to have, like your browser, multiple tabs opened up to different views of your storage. And that way, if you're trying to transfer stuff from one area to another, be it a folder or a different drive, it makes life a whole lot easier. Supposedly, this feature was supposed to have been implemented years ago, but Windows management decided not to do it. And now, with other third-party file type explorers in Windows, in Mac, and on Linux, having this capability, finally the Linux influence inside of Microsoft is bringing this back at least to Windows 11. It might not be available to non-insiders until you upgrade to 22H2, which will be in the fall. I think October. That's usually the month it releases. So there's 2 tips. And hopefully if you're into Linux, this helps you. Bill, I see you out there. Can I have you tell us, are you using Linux, and if so, which version? Very talkative. Seems like most people have lost their voice tonight. All right. Well, I guess Bill stepped away or something, or he just doesn't want to respond. I don't know which. So we'll move on from there. Tonight, Bob Premick is going to enlighten us a little bit on claw mail versus Thunderbird, and he may also touch upon a photo editing program. Bob, it's all yours.
Well, okay. What I think I'll do first is I will introduce a program many of you may have seen in Windows already, which would be Thunderbird. And this is what it looks like once it has been set up. I do want to do a little bit about how to set up an account. And in order to get that, I'm going to show what how my current account here is set up. That wasn't what I wanted.
Of course not.
Yeah, the account settings. See, there are things you set up, which would be your name, email address. Everybody knows mine anyway, and there are going. In some cases, you'll be able to use a wizard in Thunderbird. So you will not need to set up these server settings, but it's nice to know how to set things up. I have things set up for IMAP, but you can also do a POP server, a POP setup, which is really less common. The difference is that IMAP leaves your mail on the webmail server, whereas if you use POP, the mail would be downloaded to local folders, and it may or may not stay on the server depending on how you set it up. So right now, I want to be able to leave my mail on the server because I use a different Linux to actually download anything. So with Yahoo and with Gmail, more and more, they're not allowing applications to just log in with the password. It requires additional authorization. And the authentication method that they're using is called OAuth 2. And you have to set up an app password in your webmail service. And there are ways of doing that in Gmail and in Yahoo. You have to get their instructions for it. So when it asks for the settings, when you set it up, all right, let me see if it's in here. Okay, I am not going to be able to show it the way I wanted to. Okay, I was able to show it before, but anyway, it will have you fill in various things, which would include the server settings, and you get those from the email service or from the Thunderbird help, and it will have a space to fill in your login name and your login password. And that's basically all I need. And the app password would go where your login password normally would go, and then that would be remembered. So you can have different views. Right now, I've got it in a chronological view, which is not the conversational view you would have seen in Gmail, and Yahoo has a slightly different conversational view. But you can change the view, and you can sort by. Now, right now it's unthreaded. Let me go over to threaded. And now I have something from Tim that's about my Linux topic for the month, and it's all grouped together, even though it happened on different dates from the 15th all the way up through the 21st. There's something I filed away, which was the original message, which has already been moved into a folder. And I moved it into a folder I call tech, and it's got the rest of that conversation over there. But if that were in the inbox, it would also join the conversation. When I view my webmail, the conversations are, I'm going to mark this as on red again. If I view the conversations in webmail, and I was viewing Tim's, where was that? Okay, it reverted. I think, let's see if it did. Well, I'm going to do it unthreaded, and then I'm going to rethread. So, sort by threaded. Okay. So anyway, any of these that I have conversation views, the first message in the conversation is retained in the inbox by Yahoo webmail, but it won't necessarily be retained by Thunderbird if the original message was moved to another folder, as this one was. So you can mark things as read or as unread, as you normally would in any kind of an email client. And you can also copy and move. You can select some messages. Let's just select a few. Let's do that many, and we'll copy. I don't actually want to move them because that's going to do some weird things if I move to a local folder. I usually copy something I want to save to a local folder. And that way, it's still here in my inbox online, if I ever go back to it online. Whereas here it is now in a local folder, which even if I disconnect from the internet, these messages are still going to be here. And that also makes it possible to do some backup and restoring of messages that may not be available for download any longer. So that's how Thunderbird does all of these, all the things that it does. And there are some other settings, and I haven't done very much with them. You can go to the next or the previous email, and you can go to various folders. And there are other things that you can do. There are different things you can do with, you can create a new message, you can tag messages, and you can mark messages. And there's all kinds of fancier things you can do as you get farther along. So that is basically how I have set up Thunderbird. And sorting can be done by the correspondent. And it can be ascending or descending. You just click again to do it the opposite way. And you can do it by date. This would be the most recent. And again, anytime you click on or linger on an email message, it will get marked as read. So you might have to do that to it to restore it as unread if you want to bring it to your attention for later. And you can also sort by subject. This little flame is junk status. I don't use that. You can sort by whether or not they're read or unread. You can sort by attachments, whether or not they have attachments, or whether or not you've marked them as starred, which would be you think it's important. And there are some other, I think there's one other category. Yeah, you can display message threads as well. So there are all these other things where you can reply to a message, forward, archive, classify it as junk. You have to be very careful in IMAP about deleting a message. If you delete a message locally in IMAP, you are deleting it on the server. And POP doesn't necessarily do that. And there's more which allows various other things that you can do. Okay, now let me just minimize this. Another one that uses a different way of organizing email is clause mail. This one is a much less graphical email client. I like it because it doesn't have the distractions of all that graphical stuff. It doesn't really do conversation view, it does folder view. And if you've done Outlook, or at least the older Outlook, it will. It also used to be organized by folders rather than conversations. And I prefer to organize things by folders, things of that sort. So if I did want to take some email, and let's say I want to sort by from, and maybe I have a bunch of things that are ads from one of our local drugstore chains, and we'll just copy that. And here you have the folder view in ClauseMail. And I'm just going to put it in Mail Volume 2, just so that I can show you what happens when you see it stays in the inbox, because I did copy instead of move. And now they're over here and they're available locally. And if I go offline, they'll still be here. And what I want to show about Clause, I'm not as clear on exactly where this is in Thunderbird because I don't use it as much. But if I go to my home directory in Linux and I go to Yahoo Mint, it has this is one of the accounts that I've set up, and it has folders that are actual folders that you can back up and do whatever you need to do with them. I thought I also had one for local folders in there. Yeah, local folders has my mail volume 1 and my mail volume 2. I could take these and move them and copy them to another drive. And if things get messed up in here, I could just copy back, put it all back, and Clause will behave as though nothing bad ever happened. You might have to refresh it or rebuild the folder tree, but other than that, it is pretty much easier to do. Whereas if I needed to do something with Thunderbird, I think what I would need to do is get into Thunderbird's own folder and get into the profile. And there are instructions online as to how to do that, but I don't really want to get into that because it's pretty advanced. But under the hood, Thunderbird is actually using a variation on the old Unix mailbox folder type. And that actually can be transferred from, the folders can be transferred from one Thunderbird installation to another, from Windows into Linux, and Clause can also pick up Thunderbird exports in the mailbox format. That is something which online, apparently there may be a few issues with exactly how Thunderbird exports to the Unix mailbox format, but I have had success exporting to mailbox format and importing the mailboxes. It's when you get into groups or profiles or the entire directory structure, the entire folder structure with Thunderbird, if you try to export that and then import it into another email program, you're probably going to run into some issues. So the other thing I want to do is show in Clause how accounts are set up. And I'm just going to do it by pretending I'm going to edit this. This is where the app password goes for Yahoo or Gmail instead of your login password that you would use for webmail. And again, that's because of the new security requirements. I think there's going to be a further change in Gmail at the end of May. I don't know what impact that's going to have. There may be further security features that will have to be enabled. But it's just the user ID and the password is used automatically. And with IMAP, whenever you log in, it will normally just find all your new mail. Although you can force that as well by telling it to reload the mail or even rebuild the folder tree. The other thing is you will have certain things about SSL and TLS. Again, your webmail service will have the instructions as to what settings you need. And there is a wizard in ClauseMail, but it doesn't do a very good job of setting up for modern webmail services. That's partly because ClauseMail is based on a very old program that was very Unix-like, and they didn't really update their wizard very much when they updated the program. And so you can do sending and receiving settings. And there's various things you can change. And again, the authentication method, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But you leave it on automatic for most of the time because that usually works. So I'm going to cancel out so I'm not actually changing anything here because I already have this set up. And at this point, I think the best thing for me to do is ask if people have understood what I have presented so far, and if you have questions or if you have things you want to do with your email.
I'm curious, Bob, in Thunderbird, and it may something similar be in Clause. When you're using the star field, most of the programs that I've done email with, you only either have it on or off. Is there an option to have a different color star when you're flagging basically a given email to give it different degrees of importance?
Degrees of importance, no. However, you can tag emails. I'm trying to find where that setting is, but there is a setting for doing tags. Here we go. Here we go. You can tag, and here's important, work, personal, to do later. You can edit these tags or make a new tag. And so if you want, you could make one of these important, one of these medium, high importance, medium importance, lesser importance. You could do that, or you could keep what they've got. The main thing is you might eventually run out of colors. So let me see if that can be edited. Okay, now I'm going to untag that. Just a moment, if I can untag it. And you can do it by one message or a group of messages. I just have to, and that should have untagged the message. Indeed. And if I wanted to, I could, let's suppose this were medium importance, I could do that. And it's all colored and all like that. It doesn't change what the star is going to look like.
Okay.
But it does change what the message shading will look like. That's in Thunderbird.
Okay.
And I have a feeling similar things happen in Clause. That's Thunderbird again. Here. Let me see if there is something I can do with the message. Tags. I can do a color label, any color I want. I can probably create tags. Right now I only have one tag defined. So I'm quite sure you can create new tags. It's just a question of getting the instructions as to exactly how you do that. And there are various marks that are used. I think in Clause you have the ability. Okay, no, it's just a mark or an unmark, ignore, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there is the ability to create tags and to edit tags. Anybody else got anything? Tim, is that your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that your phone? Okay, that's all right. But yeah, if I were to explore it further, I could come back and answer exactly how we do all these things that are a little fancier than what I usually do. But yeah, you're onto something.
Well, it's something that I've been interested in. I'll even have to look at the email I do use to see if I can do something similar to that.
Yeah. You should be able to define a tag, to edit what the tag is labeled, and to change its color.
Okay.
And in some email programs, you may be able to change the color of the star.
Let me try to make sure I'm understanding some concepts, Bob. So
All right.
so when you have something like a Gmail, you're saying you can set it for either IMAP or POP. And in Thunderbird, you can do that same thing. And in Thunderbird, even if you have it set to IMAP, where the mail stays on the server,
Yep.
you can still pick out some individual emails and copy them and save them to your hard drive.
Yes.
Which you can't do in Gmail, right?
You can do that. You can do that with any email service that Thunderbird connects with, also that Clause connects with. From IMAP, you can copy to a local folder, which won't be affected by what you do in the IMAP, unless you specifically act on the local folder. And you can back up these local folders so that if you do mess up, you'll be able to get it back. And that is available for any IMAP service, for any IMAP by form of an email client.
So what makes you use, how do you distinguish like which of your emails you want to use Thunderbird for versus Clause for?
The only reason I present both Clause and Thunderbird is some people like one kind of interface, some people like a different kind. Also, Clause will be able to use the pure Linux, pure Unix mbox format, whereas Thunderbird is a little different in how it uses that format. So there are technical reasons. The reason I present Thunderbird is that it also exists in Windows. And so if you have used Thunderbird in Windows and you now want to use an email client in Linux, Thunderbird would probably be the easiest one to do. You can also transfer whole profiles of Thunderbird pretty directly from your Windows profile to your Linux profile for Thunderbird. That's, again, pretty advanced how you do that exactly, but that's one reason why a lot of people will stick with Thunderbird. CloseMail does exist for Windows, but not many people use it.
At a number of other meetings, people have talked about the ProtonMail. How does that differ from, let's say, Thunderbird, CloseMail, that kind of thing? You know much about ProtonMail?
Are they talking about a client or are they talking about a webmail service?
It's probably a client.
I don't know.
Okay, the ProtonMail client can be set up to be encrypted end to end. if you pay for it.
Okay.
And
Oh.
that means you're using the ProtonMail servers, which is why I asked, is there a webmail component? But you also have local copies, and your local copies will be encrypted. And everything is encrypted end to end, so you have much better privacy. And there are several ways of doing privacy. You can put privacy into Thunderbird or into Clause. Clause does have what's known as a PGP option. I don't use it, but there are people who do.
And Proton works with Windows and Linux, eat both, no problem.
I believe there is both Windows and Linux for ProtonMail. I'm not as familiar with that as I am with these two, and with Outlook to some extent. But yeah. And by the way, Outlook, you can also export with reasonable success, so that Thunderbird can pick up the export, can import it into Thunderbird. CloseMail would be less successful, I think, in getting the exported Outlook folders correctly imported. So that's another reason why some people will use Thunderbird. Anything else?
Yeah, so Bob, I'm running a number of my emails on an Outlook server,
All right.
web-based. It's coming off of Office 365.
Okay.
So I can get my emails on both of my Windows machines into the same emails.
Yeah.
Can either the two Linux clients capture and take down from?
I'm not sure I'm clear exactly what you're doing there. You can set up different accounts, and you can also set up different accounts for Outlook in either Thunderbird or Clause for an Outlook server. There are settings that are well known for how you do that. And are you saying you want to get email from two different Outlook accounts and combine them?
I need all my Outlook accounts kept separate, but
Yeah.
visible.
Okay, that these clients can do. You can set up more than one Outlook account, more than one Gmail account, more than one Yahoo account. As long as they have different logins and different app passwords,
Yeah.
you can set that up. And there's a limit to how many app passwords you can have in Yahoo or Gmail. I don't know how Outlook.com handles that, but there are other authentication schemes you could use. And you could have different accounts that do have different logins. So like what you're seeing here, this inbox would be for just that one account. And then if you went to your other account, you'd see a different inbox. So you wouldn't be mixing and mingling.
Right. And so on your folders thing, you would have going, if you were to have 2 or 3 accounts on there, you go down further and you'd have another folder with a different account.
Yeah. So instead of maybe Bob Primack at yahoo.com, I might have RC Primack at yahoo.com as my next one, and so on and so forth. And yes, they can be kept quite separate with both Clause and Thunderbird. In the original Unix systems, they were using something rather similar to Clause, and you had to be able to do exactly that sort of thing.
But if you're seeing them both there, Bob, does that mean there's just one password to access all the stuff under both accounts?
No. As a matter of fact, if you were seeing my actual Clause mail, you would see I have a Yahoo, I have a Gmail. And if I want to collect mail in the get messages, I'm going to do this for Clause, but it works similarly. There would be a get mail, And each account would be listed, and each one might have its own password, if there were passwords, or each one might have its own authentication, which is already built in. It'll look like it's going directly without changing passwords, but it's actually using a different app password or a different OAuth. It just does it automatically as though you had saved a password. So in other words, if you have a saved password in an email client, you don't see the password being requested, but it happens under the hood, behind the scenes. And if you had if you went to view the log, there are logs that they keep. If you went to view the log, you would see the process that happened. So there is authentication for individual accounts. Anything else?
How's it play with Apple?
I have no idea. I don't use Apple. And I can tell you something. Thunderbird does exist in Apple on a Mac. And believe it or not, Macs are also kind of Unix-like.
Yes.
And the export from Thunderbird on a Mac to Mbox would be fully interchangeable with Linux because it's the Unix format. And that's the beauty of it. Windows is a little weird about Unix formats, but everybody else can use them quite natively. Apple can, Linux can. It's just Windows that has trouble with Unix formats. And I wouldn't say that Thunderbird in Windows would have too much trouble with the Unix format. It would not. I've done that. It's just that, be aware that there's an import-export tools. You have to get the very latest version in order to match the current version of Thunderbird. You can't use an older version of the plugin. So make sure you're downloading the right one.
So you're saying this is a separate add-on to the Thunderbird installation?
There is an add-on that's called Import Export NG. And I might be able to show you the add-ons. Import Export Tools NG. I had to make really sure that this was not an older version, because look what this did. The external editor plugin, I can't even remove that, and it's not compatible. That's an older version. I don't know if there is an updated version for this one.
Why won't it let you remove it?
I don't know. It may be hard-coded in somehow.
Can you check the 3 dots?
All right.
Yeah.
It says it can't be removed. Then you ask why. And let's see what the manage does. Nope. But note, look for menu, tools, add-on options, external edit. Let's try this. Tools. What we were doing was, let me get exactly what it wants me to do. Tools, add-on options. So we have tools, and I don't see add-on options. So I don't know what they're asking me to do.
That may have changed by versions.
Yep.
That's not a joke either.
Developer tools. Try. There's a
Well,
carrot on the side.
No, that's debug add-ons.
Okay.
So some way, somehow, they've removed something that would have allowed me to remove it. So I would have to do some real surgery in there to do anything about it, I think.
Interesting.
That shouldn't happen. And I'm sure somewhere online I can find out about it. But yeah, what it says, add-on options, menu, tools, add-on options isn't in there. Oh, well, that's what it says.
Well, when you clicked on the three dots, didn't it say why? It'll let you click on why?
Yeah, it says why, and it says that you restart in safe mode. I've done that.
No.
It does not work.
You probably had the issue for quite some time and several versions of Thunderbird, and now at this point you can't do anything about it.
This is a brand new install of a brand new version of Thunderbird. Never been on this mint before. So who knows?
Then where did this come from?
It came with Thunderbird, with the install. That's why I'm saying something is not right here.
Yeah, something sure isn't right. If this was an upgrade to a
Yeah.
prior version, somehow
Well, I'll show
you've
you what it
lost it.
says. What it says is uninstalling in safe mode. Now, there is a way to do it manually. The menu button, help troubleshooting information, and it says open directory. But you know what I find? Just a moment, what am I supposed to do?
Help.
I'm supposed to help troubleshooting information. Okay, more troubleshooting information. And open directory, profile directory. Now, this is the profile directory, and it says go into extensions. That's import export tools, which I added.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else in here.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. There is another possibility, however. There may be another profile. Nope. So I would have to figure out what the problem is. And that's not something I can do this month. If I come up with something, I'll let you guys know next month.
Yeah, considering we only got a week left of this month.
Yeah. But I could go into troubleshoot mode or clear the startup cache or all those other things. But anyway,
I don't think it's going to get rid of it.
I don't think so either. So we'll see what happens. Anything else? We were talking about an add-on, which was for the import export. And I was just saying you have to have the correct version of it. And there are settings for it. So there's all kinds of things you might have to look up exactly what you want to do. Okay.
You want to do anything on that photo program?
Well, I could do a little bit with Fotoxx.
Might as well, because I don't think I'll get to the Lastpass this month.
No?
We're starting to
Okay.
run out of time. It's after 9 o'clock.
Yeah. If you want the time, you can have it. If you don't want the time, I can do this.
Go ahead, because I'm not sure how long it would take me anyhow.
Now, I haven't really prepared very much about Fotoxx, and it does take a little while to fire up. And it's a photo editor. Close took a while to fire up also. This is downloaded and installed as an app image, so it can take a while to find itself and all of its components. There. The other thing is, it indexes your photos every time it opens, and that takes a little bit of time sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a photo here, and with Fotoxx, you have the ability to select various files. In the gallery view, you will see whatever was imported into the particular folder. I don't have much in here because this is my photos in Mint, and I've been experimenting with different photos. This was the original. If you want some things like an ordinary, we want to, if you want to adjust various, I was going to try to show where the contrast and brightness controls are. And I did have it. Where do I have it here? Okay, they do organize differently from something like GIMP. And well, anyway, it does have some features that are different from what most photo editing programs would have. You can do something called a brightness ramp, and this is how it normally would handle contrast and light and shadow issues. If there's too much shadow, I can raise the middle here, and that will make a change that I like. If I raise one end, now this is doing it for all the colors. You can do it individually for different colors. If I raise the end here, it'll affect, this is affecting the shadows more than anything else. And if I do this end here, it affects the highlights more than anything else. So that can pretty much take the place of both the brightness and the contrast that are used in other programs. Let's see what else I can find that I can easily do. What I usually use are the various repair types of things. You can do something that'll do a little bit of blurring if you want to blur, and you can also do sharpen. So let me see about doing some blurring here. I don't know if it's going to show up, but anyway, you can adjust how these different things work. Let's see what radial blur will do in here. See, now a radial blur will do, it increases the effect as you go outward when you do a radial blur. And I'm going to reset that. So there are some other things that can be done. Also, it does have save options where you can save a new version of the file. You can save it as a new file with a new name, or you can save it to replace the old file. And okay, so when I use the instructions that I find online, I can find the more traditional. I can find the more traditional controls like brightness. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be under gradient. No. But anyway, like I say, there are various tools that you can use, and they're grouped together under various kinds of. You can definitely select an area, and there are the usual editing tools for rotating, cropping, retouching, resizing. And I'm not sure what paint image will do or all that, but I think what that's going to do is it's going to put one image onto another and things of that nature. Let's see what else I can quickly come up with. The other thing it's supposed to be able to do is to take out some bends. I haven't figured out how to get this fisheye effect completely undone. But supposedly, if you have any kind of bending, you might be able to do, let's do that amount and see what we've got here. Yeah, that does a little bit of getting rid of the effect. So if I experimented a little more with it, the unbend might be able to take care of, let's do it again. It begins to take care of the fisheye effect in here. So I do want to show the result of, I'm going to discard changes to the current image. This is what I came up with when I was using the various brightness and contrast controls. When I had more time to look up online what I was doing, so that I did adjust for the shadow and I did get the highlights adjusted at the same time. I didn't try to adjust for the curvature. And right now, I think that's about all I want to do with Fotoxx. If I play around with it a little bit more, I would be able to demonstrate some more in the future.
Well, GIMP is supposed to have similarities to Adobe Photoshop. Granted, there's going to be differences between the two.
Yeah.
Offhand, how does this one compare with the GIMP?
Fotoxx makes no effort to be like Photoshop.
Okay.
It's different by design.
All right.
And this is one reason why you kind of have to learn where things are before you really can use it. But I find that in GIMP, I have to learn where things are there also, because it's, to me, not as intuitive as something like Pinta, which has very few controls, or Paint.net in Windows. So anything else?
I think that's about it.
But you prefer this one over GIMP now.
The more I work with it over the GIMP, the more I work with it, the more I think Fotoxx works out better for me than GIMP. But I usually use simpler photo editors. Was there something else?
Yeah, offhand, my comment to Dennis would be GIMP is like Photoshop. They're very high end, lots and lots of tools. They're more for professional photographers doing various touch-ups on images they take pictures of. Most average users, it's just overblown. So we tend to gravitate to simpler, easier to understand tools, and this might fit the bill. It gives you a lot of flexibility from the looks of it, but like a lot of tools, you got to learn how to use them. And YouTube's a great resource for that in many aspects of different pieces of software.
GIMP and Inkscape are used a lot in the 3D community to edit spline tools and vectors
Okay.
for models and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But that's still getting into a very high-end tool.
That's right.
Well, once you learn how the vectors work, Inkscape really, there's nothing like it. There's nothing that will do what it does. And it's a really good program. I know of some people who do a lot of work with it.
Yeah.
And the other one that you said?
GIMP.
GIMP, yeah. And people who really know how to use GIMP, yeah, there are things you can do there that you wouldn't be able to do as easily in some of the other editors.
Everything depends upon you, the person. What are you trying to do? Do I want simple tools because I'm not doing something very professional, or do I have to have high-end tools because I'm doing something that's very high-end to begin with. So you have to select your tools accordingly. If you go too low on tools, then you're not going to be able to do all the things you want to do. And you got to now learn a new tool that has more features and capabilities. So that's a big issue. How much time do you have to learn how to use the higher end software?
It's also what industry are you working for? If you're doing straight 2D or flat photos and stuff like that, maybe Adobe or a copy of Adobe might be the better tool if you're going a little bit higher end, but it costs a bunch of money.
Sure. And that's another reason why there's competition.
Right. Absolutely. I use Fusion for my 3D design because it works with the workflow that I'm used to doing since high school.
Okay.
So
Makes
everything
sense.
I've done from high school drafting all the way to now works in the workflow that the CAD CAM modelers do. You do the bar room sketch on the napkin, and then you go and you refine it. And then you've got tools in Fusion that you don't have in some of the other tools to bring in other images and stuff like that to make it prettier. But the same way with the photo editors and like Paint and that. If you're never going to export it to something else other than a JPEG or something like that, Paint will do you good. Paint 3D, even for doing slight 3D modeling, or some of the other simpler free modeling programs are good. They're starting to finally put in things like dimensioning on some of them, which is important.
Okay. Well, now, if my nephew were part of the group, some of what you just said would relate to him. He has 3D printing. He does industrial robotics control, and also he's working on a degree in electronic engineering. So it depends on what you're doing on any computer. It doesn't matter what it is.
Correct.
And for you, because you showed up late, I had a couple tips that you missed, but you'll have to wait until the video is posted on the Chicago Computer Society YouTube channel.
Okay. I'll circle back like the lady for the White House says.
Well, it's just I did a couple tips, one on updating Zoom on Linux, and
Okay.
also a feature I didn't know was in the File Explorer of Mint, and it's not working exactly the way I totally wanted to. Maybe I haven't played with it enough, but I give you at least a sample of it. All right. Anybody got any other issues? How about ideas for future meetings? I'll have to do the Lastpass probably next time, because I don't think right now it's already oh, wait a minute, it's 20 after 8. Excuse me. I thought it was 20 after 9. I don't know why I was thinking it was 9. Well, if it's only 20 after 8, I'll go for the Lastpass now. The hell with it.
That's why I was asking you, Tim. Did you really think it was that late?
But when I was looking at the clock on here, it was saying it was after 9 o'clock. Now it says after 8 o'clock.
I'll tell you what happened. You got transported into my time zone and back again.
That could be. That could be. Seriously.
Sorry about that. I had the field set too large on my Fotoxx Warp.
I might have seen your time instead of my time. And that's why I didn't think I was going to get to this. All right. Now I got to get.
Well, on my time, you got all night.
Yeah. Ha ha
Not
ha.
me.
Ha 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 ha.
I have a meeting in the morning.
What for?
I have another computer club that's local here in the Boston area, and they meet at 10 a.m. They're a technology group.
Okay.
They're mostly retired Raytheon people.
You're gonna build your own missiles?
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to do a presentation on tomorrow, downdraft radar and how they protect airports and how they navigate around airports.
Interesting.
Radar was a big thing Raytheon worked on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Raytheon's going to have to step up the missiles, it looks like.
Okay. Now, Lastpass is a password manager I've been using for well over a decade, and they've had a couple security breaches, but everything's encrypted. And this is one thing when you're looking for password managers, whether it's LastPass or something else, where does the encryption occur? LastPass does it on your local computer. Then a copy of your secured material gets moved up into the cloud so you can access that vault of information from any computer that can get to the internet. So there is another little side piece, and I was looking it up this afternoon, and this is some of the search results. LastPass on the desktop. Normally I use LastPass as an extension add-in to browsers, and one way or another, no matter what browser it is, I've got LastPass in it. Without LastPass in a browser, that browser is of little use to me because most of the time I'm going to one of my account sites and I have to log in. However, all browsers for some time now give you the ability, and they will nag you. Do you want me to save this password? And originally, the information was not encrypted in the browsers. Now they encrypt it, but personally, I have no clue how good the encryption is to keep your information safe. And so I'm a little leery of using it. I generally recommend not to use the browser to save your passwords because it not only gives the account name, your username, and the password, even though it may be encrypted. There may be some thieves that can get that information and decrypt it. So I'm a little leery about that. With LastPass, I don't know, unless they have a big mainframe computer, if they've got the computing power to decrypt each person's independently encrypted vault of information. On Windows, you have an app that can go onto the desktop. And when I first started out, I use this app, but most of the time I do not use the app since most of the time I'm going in a browser that I already have the extension loaded in. And this one, if you can see my cursor, is pointing to LastPass extension in this browser. When it's red with 3 dots, it's logged in, everything's available. When it's a yellow, or goldish color anyway, there may be a problem. You might have to log in again. or something else you have to address. When it's black, you're logged out. So if I give you a brief view of this, okay, now I have vault view. I don't like it. Why? Because it looks like a business card layout, and you have to scroll through a hell of a lot of stuff in order to find what the hell you're looking for. So I have all items. This brings up this screen here. It wants to know, do you want the passwords that you have set up for your accounts? Do I want secure notes? I do use secure notes. One of my secure notes is most of my computers. I can identify each of the computers. I know the administrator's login. I know a standard account login. If I use a PIN number on any of the standard accounts, I don't use them on the administrator. I track that. If it's a financial institution, I have notes down there where I can add information about the security questions and answers I set up. There's additional information I can do. Addresses, I don't use. Payment cards, I never put that even in here, even though it's all encrypted. Same for bank accounts. I will not put that in there. It's in under passwords for the bank accounts, but I do not store the data as it were. So I don't want to add an account. So I'm going to come back to here. Wi-Fi passwords. I do have in secure notes my Wi-Fi passwords, and a lot of times they get out of date because I forget to update the note as well. I'm going to back up one. When I'm in this view here, there's an add item. This is a manual add-in. It's recommended not to use it, and the reason is human error. And if you use the feature to put in items, you better check it out before you delete the information source that you were entering into Lastpass from, such as on your browser passwords. Generate secure password. This is terrific. Now, most of the time, I used to do a 12-character password. Anymore, I do at least 16. I might go all the way up to 20. This little slider makes it real problematic getting exactly what I want, but you get the idea. I can specify with a check mark. It'll contain uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and if I put a check mark here, it puts in special symbols. This is one it generated at 13 characters. Now, some sites, especially financial institutions, they either do not allow you to have symbols, or they restrict what ones you can. So you have to kind of memorize what symbols are allowed in that institution's passwords, and make sure this password up here contains only the symbols that that account will accept. Once you've done that, you can, I sometimes will highlight this and do a Control-C to copy to the clipboard as an insurance policy, and I'll clear out the clipboard afterwards. This also does a fill operation if I am at the point of putting a password into a new account or to change my password into an existing account. I can autofill the new password in, and it takes care of itself. When you do this and it puts that information in there, before you go any further, you get a little pop-out message in your browser that asks you, do you want to save the information? Sometimes I will say no if there seems to be an issue. That's why I did a Control-C to copy it. I can do it later manually by just pasting it in through an edit. But it gives me a lot of flexibility. And this is going to be a two-part issue. I'm going to just give you some of the general view of LastPass, and in a future meeting, probably next month, I will actually set up an account and you'll see me do it and what I do. But I'm going to come back here. There's a security dashboard that option that gives you your score of how secure it thinks your password is. 76% is currently on mine. So that's an issue I can try and address by changing my passphrase. In LastPass, you are creating a passphrase, not a password, and you have no source of really helping you. When you set it up, you set up a hint that doesn't reveal what your password is, but at the same time, you have the problem that nobody at LastPass can help you if you forget your passphrase. You made it unique. It's encrypted up on their site. They don't know what it is, and they have no way of going into your vaulted information to figure out what the password is, i.e. crack it. If it was that easy for them to crack to get your information, you wouldn't want to use the program to begin with. So it has a lot of feature capabilities. You got account options as well, but one that I use a lot is up here. This is the search. Instead of going into all items passwords and to one of the folders in there, which I'll show you in a minute, I might type in the OOM, and these are my Zoom accounts. And I can click this and it will automatically launch it in a tab, a brand new tab. Or I can, if I'm already at a login screen, I can click here and it will fill in my username and password for me. Or I can come here and I can copy to the clipboard the username and paste it, but you have to come back to also get the password. Most of the time I would know what the username is, so I could type that in and come here only for the password when it will not auto-populate on some sites. But most sites, I don't have that issue. The pencil is for editing the account, and by clicking on it, you get some idea. It's got to have a URL so that it can open up a tab and go to that site for the login screen. This is a user type name that identifies what the account is. This one does not have a folder. That means it goes into a general bucket called none. Otherwise, you can create folders to your desire, so that I can come in here and select one of these folders that I have created, or I can type in here a new name that doesn't exist. Let's say I call it Jewel, one of my cats. I would never figure out to go to a folder called Jewel to get this information, but it's doable. This gives me the username that is for that specific account, and this is the password. And if you click on the I here, there's the password. There isn't much to this, and I don't care. You want to copy this information? Go ahead. I don't have this account. It's closed a long time ago, years ago. So it won't get you anything. This is the area for notes. You get into a lot of the various accounts. They want up to 3 security questions. Okay, I might type in what was the security question, and then below that or to the side of it, I would type in what my answer was, so that I don't have to necessarily memorize that information, and I could lie through my teeth in my answer. But as long as I can see the information there, I can properly answer the security questions if they pop one up challenging me. There are some advanced features. Pardon? You have the master password reprompt. This means you got to confirm things. When I go into secure notes, even though I'm logged in right now to Lastpass, I have to give the passphrase again to authorize me to see my notes. You can do auto login. It works on some sites, but not all sites. It depends upon the individual site, how security conscious they are. Some do not like it. Some do not like you doing copy paste of login type information. So you have to be able to sit there and type in your information by viewing all this information like I'm doing now. Disable autofill. I can disable that feature so that anytime somebody else other than me brings up that account onto one of my machines or somebody else's machine, that I have access to my LastPass vault, nothing shows up there. They have to know LastPass enough to be able to go into it and be able to have its login name and password, or passphrase, I should say. Once they've got that, all bets are off. They have access to all my information. So I'm going to cancel that there. I'm going to go to all items. I'm going to passwords. And I have created, the none is, a lot of times when you're trying to recover an account or creating an account for the first time, it may end up putting something in LastPass's none folder category. All the other folders you see here are ones I created. So I do have a bank, I have business, I have devices. Drugs is for pharmacies. My emails. Here's emails. These are my accounts. And I have them for various reasons. And as you can see, there's even for Apple, because I have some old Macs. They're outdated right now, but that's a side from the situation. So generally speaking, we have a capability here to be able to have each account site I have a login to. I could have unique names if I don't want to have the same name on everything. I can also have, because I have multiple email accounts, if I felt like it, where they want your email address as your user ID, I can give out different ones without using a feature in many email accounts that give you alternate email address capabilities. And that means I can have a permanent alternate email address, or I can treat it as a temporary. Maybe I create a temporary email account address. I log into a site, I get what I want out of it, and when I exit, I disable that temporary alternate email address. In doing so, they can't get a hold of me anymore. And they're not going to hit me with spam. They're not going to hit me with advertisements trying to get me to do something I don't want to do. So these are options. And generally speaking, under these items for passwords, there's tons of different categories you can have. It depends on you, the individual. I have one for my networks because I have multiple devices. I have health. I have groups. I have finances, etc., etc. So there's all kinds of things. My when I pay utilities, there's the account that's in the utilities. And all it is very much like I showed you in my email accounts. These are the individual accounts, and I can find the ones I want, and I can access the information. I can, if I want to delete it, I have to go into the item, and then you will have an option to delete an account that's no longer valid. And I've done that periodically, Nat, where there's information about an old account that's been closed or changed in some fashion, especially for like ISPs. I used to have Comcast. Okay, Comcast doesn't exist. Most of it's the entries out there I've deleted, but there are a few stragglers in the none folder because most of us will ignore the none folder. But sometimes you can't find what you're looking for. You might want to check that out, or come here in the beginning and use the search feature. The search feature may be able to find that account that you're looking for that has no folder designation. This will give you good capabilities. Now, depending on your point of view of things, when I'm done for the day, I can log out. This goes black. The next day that I use the system, I can then log in. Sometimes when you leave it on, and let's say you're doing an update to the operating system, it may take and log you out. When you reboot the computer and it comes back up, it'll be black and you have to log in. Sometimes it'll be there logged in if you have not logged out. Go ahead, Peter.
Tim, I've got a delivery coming in, so I'm going to put us on mute and handle that.
Go ahead.
Okay, just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Generally speaking, this gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of capability to try and keep your information safe. And one of the safest ways of handling your individual accounts for online activities, especially financial institutions, drugstores, retail places you do business for, like an Amazon, a Walmart, Target, etc., you get the picture. It's a case where you gotta have at least the password unique to each site. And rather than people who just cannot make good passwords, use the password generator. It's easy to use and it knows what the hell it's doing, and there's a likelihood you'll never duplicate your password. Now, if you are like a lot of American citizens, they're too lazy. They can't dream up strong passwords. They don't use a password manager. They, at most, have 3 or 4 logins they always use on all their online accounts, or they write down on a piece of paper. Let's say that I am somebody they let into their home. They get distracted maybe with a phone call, go into the kitchen, go to the bathroom, something like that. If I see the piece of paper, I can take out my smartphone, take a picture of that, hope it turns out real good. And they don't know I just stole all their account information, their logins, and their passwords. Or I could just grab the piece of paper, and until they notice it missing, I'm scot-free. They may not associate that I took the piece of paper. So that's a factor too. If you use too few logins, like most Americans, if bad people are able to crack one of your accounts, they've got that login information for that account. Since you only use an average of 3 or 4 login informations with passwords, they go out and they try and find you on other sites, and they will try out the information they figured out, and they may get into a lot of your online accounts. And those that they come up with that login doesn't work, odds are with what they already know and what you post on social media, odds are they're going to figure out some of the other passwords you use, and boom, they're into all your accounts. They now are you, and they can transcribe all kinds of commerce in your name, have it shipped to another address where they pick it up, but it's not their place. They just know that the package is going to be delivered at such a location. They steal it before the person who might have that address is aware that it's even there. So there's lots of little tricks, and you're on the hook for that package. If it's on social media and you post something that most people consider terrible or disinformation type information, it looks like you, not them, because they are logged in as you. So you either do things the smart way, or you will eventually pay the price. God, one of my cats got playful in my lap and messing around with the cord for my headset. At any rate, these are some of the basics of a password manager. I'm not saying go out and get Lastpass. I'm saying this is a real option that must be looked at if you really want to keep privacy and keep down some identity theft type stuff. It will not end all of it. Identity theft has been on the rise. Ask Sanford. Somebody attempted to take out a big loan. Sanford hasn't figured out how they got enough of his personal information, but they made one mistake on their application for the loan, and fortunately, the institution did its due diligence, and all of a sudden they had a red flag and stopped the loan from going through, contacted Sanford. He had to fill out a police report. This is life. This is the real world. But it got caught only because of one little mistake that that person made. Whether they got that person or not, I don't know. I don't think Sanford knows. But it would be nice if they did get caught and got put away. This is my concept of having good security practice on the system. When you get into the OS, like Windows as an example, has a lot of privacy settings available. You got to take and go through them. Go through the time to go through them, understand them enough to be able to know what to turn off and what to leave on. I'll tell you, under privacy, almost everything under privacy I turn off. The exception, if I'm going to do Zoom or other video conferencing like Teams that the board uses for a monthly meeting, then I have to have the camera and the microphone on. But under both, at the bottom of the side panel, there are apps that are allowed to use the camera and mic if I leave them set on. Almost every one of those I turn off because there's no need for those apps to access the camera and the microphone. And at the bottom is some apps like Zoom or Teams that I don't have control over in turning on and off. And but at least those do need the camera and microphone, and I do want them on anyway. So you have to even in Linux, any version of Linux has various security settings as well. Firewalls are usually turned off. I'm sorry, at least Windows, even though it's an inept firewall, it's better having that on than off, especially if this is a mobile device, so that when you are out of your home, away from your trusted network at home, you at least have the firewall on. It doesn't protect you against everything. If you try and use free Wi-Fi at, say, a restaurant as an example, you better have a VPN that you can turn on to prevent a local person from acting as a hotspot with a similar name to the real Wi-Fi of that institution. And as a result of that, you're going to say, hey, I ain't biting on that. I got a VPN or I got a cell phone that I know how to tether. I turn the tethering feature on. I get the Wi-Fi password and the name of the Wi-Fi. When I go on my mobile computer, I look for that specific Wi-Fi name. I type in the password for that hotspot on my phone. I'm in business. And they can't intercept the cell phone communications using Wi-Fi. They can't intercept if I've got a VPN on my system because it's encrypted. So even if I use their site by accident, with my VPN on, it's all encrypted gibberish. They have to have copy all that information on their system, and they have to have some damn good computing power and software to try and decrypt what I just did to get my account information and my username and login information to steal something of mine or do something in my name that I did not authorize and I did not do. So these are all issues. I don't care what computer it is. I don't care what OS it is. This applies to anything and everything that is online. So you have to use your head. And a password manager means I only have to remember one passphrase. Lastpass remembers all the other information I ever need for any account I have ever set up, unless I go in and delete that because I closed the account. So be smart. Look at your OSs, no matter what OS it is. Look at your privacy settings. Also on Windows in systems, there's some settings there. You might want to look at the apps folder, especially the last entry is startup folder. What programs are automatically starting up when you boot up? Anything that isn't really needed, turn it off. Your boot up will go faster just by doing that simple thing. And there are similar things in various Linuxes that do the same thing. Same thing is true in Mac OS. Some of this is taken care of for you because the creators of that Mac or Linux OS understand too many people are a little too lazy to do their own privacy stuff. They complain about it. They say they want privacy, yet they do stupid stuff that absolutely violates the rules of what it is to keep your stuff private. So this is my sage advice I'm giving you. I strongly recommend if you don't use a password manager and you use a piece of paper, or you're only using a few logins that you are able to remember, usually with lousy passwords, okay, fine. I recommend you change your habit and change it in a hurry. All you have to do is go to each account you've got that you know about, and in account management, you can go in and change at least the password so that it, once it's in LastPass or other password manager, you can go to that account. You can log in with the known password. You can go to manage your accounts, and you can use the password generator on LastPass to create a very good secure password and populate that into a change of password in that account manager on that site. It'll change, and LastPass will ask if you want to save that changed information. You say yes, it's done. And the big thing you have to do at that point is log out of that account and see if you can log back in with your new saved password. If you can do that, you're cool. If you can't log in, you did something wrong. And if you did a copy, Control C to copy the password before you went too far, it's in your clipboard until you clear it out, and then you would be able to remember your old password, get back in. Once you changed all your accounts so they're all unique passwords, take the piece of paper, go to the stove, turn on the burner and have a little bonfire right there. Just make sure you use your head doing that, and it's destroyed. And if you take the ashes and a little bit of water and stir it all up, good luck on anybody being able to take the ashes and reconstruct whatever the hell you had written down. Anybody else got anything to bring up? Still got a talkative bunch. Wow.
Just to understand something, so you said it encrypts it on your local computer.
That's correct.
So once you install it on your computer and you enter in all your, your user IDs and your passwords, and then you send it up to Lastpass encrypted. So what happens when you go to another computer? How do you access it from another computer? I'm not clear on.
You would basically have to have permission, or if it's a library one, most libraries and colleges, as soon as you log off of those computers, they automatically delete the image of the operating system that's out there that you used and put in a fresh copy that doesn't know anything you did. That's the normal practice. There may be places that aren't doing it right. I don't know. But otherwise, you have to have permission. And you would go in to, and hang on one second here. Get out of my way. I'm going to come down here. Now, I can't do this easily on this Chrome. But generally speaking, you go to More Tools, Extensions, and this is showing you what I've got out there. This is what extension does on just about any browser. And normally, I can go to the 3 hamburger patties, drop it down, come down to open up Chrome browser. Here's Chrome browser. I can put any known extension name in here, or I can do all kinds of searches. They have genre categories, or you can look through all this crap. Depends on what your time is and how busy you are and how much of a hurry you're in. But generally speaking, I can put in up here Lastpass or OnePass. Now, I will say one other thing, and this is Lastpass here. It already has the fact that I am in Lastpass. It already has it out here, so it's telling me I can remove it by clicking on this. If it wasn't out there, I can add, and then it'll have a confirmation pop-up come up here. I have to say allow, and it will install the Lastpass extension. The other option is to do a download on a Windows system of the desktop app, and then you have to put in your unique ID from whatever computer you set this up on, and that'll always be the same. And then you put in your passphrase, and as long as that computer is connected to the internet, it goes up, finds your vault, says yes, that's the right password, and you now have access to everything in it. When you're all done, you click log out. And if you didn't, well, I might be able to do that. I'm going to log out. See, it's now black. So now I click on this again. I told it I want to remember the email address. I could also said do the master password phrase. That's a big no-no. Now on if I'm on a different computer that is not mine, I would never have it save it. And so you come down here and I would say, don't save that information. And I never turn on remember the password. Never ever do that, because you're given carte blanche to anybody who comes to that same computer and can access your stuff. It's bad enough when you leave the login email address up there, but now they have to have the proper passphrase. It's not short. My passphrase is probably in the neighborhood of 16 to 20 characters. Now, what makes a password? Or I should say a passphrase. Excuse me. And by the way, there is another option here. There are keyloggers that can be on machines. To defeat keyloggers, you can use this on-screen keyboard that a keylogger usually cannot pick up. And therefore, it defeats the keylogger in being able to capture your keystrokes of your username and passwords. So that's another option. I don't use it on most of my systems. But anyway, I would have to type in my passphrase, and I'll mention something about that. I got to focus on this. Okay, I did a typo. And if you do it wrong too many times, it's going to lock you out for a period of time before you can try again. Now you saw the little safe and a spinning wheel, and I'm back in to my Lastpass. That's all there is to it to operate it. So you can put this on other people's machines. It's quite doable. I have lots and lots and lots of machines. This is on all of them. Otherwise, the computer isn't of a great value to me the majority of the time. Why? Because for years we have become more and more dependent of being online for using our computing devices, not offline like we did 2 or 3 decades ago, where most everything was you install it on your computer, you use it on your computer. There's little to no connection to what would be called the internet these days. And so it was a more secure environment, but it was also more limiting what you could do. With online presence, you can do damn near anything you want to do.
So let me step through it just to make sure I've got what you're saying. So let's say I had LastPass, it's on my computer, got it all set up. So then I travel, I go to visit my son. I'm at my son's place. I want to use his computer. So then I would go online, download the LastPass software and install it, and then launch it, type in my password.
Your username and password.
Username and password. And then it would download my encrypted file to his computer, so then I could then access my various websites.
That's correct. And log in.
And log into them, yeah.
Yes.
So then when I'm done using his computer and I leave, is my encrypted file still on his
Yes, but if you did not save your email address and your passphrase, it comes up blank lines. So unless he knows what that those two pieces of information are, he cannot open up either the local copy or the one up in the cloud because it's
So,
encrypted.
okay.
The
How
encryption is done by an algorithm with your passphrase and username. Those two pieces create the key for encrypting all your information that you're saving.
okay. And you could also do this on your phone too.
Okay, now that's another piece of this little puzzle. First off, if I use Lastpass on what I'm going to call traditional computers, desktops, mini desktops, laptops, I think it includes tablets, but I won't swear to that. But not on smartphones. It's absolutely free. Or if I use it on just smartphone and that may include tablets, then I can use that free as long as I don't put it on a laptop, mini desktop, or a full desktop. When you want to do both, there's something like about $3 and change a month charge to do both. Now, some of the other password managers, they want you to pay up front always just to use it. And so you might have to pay, say, for a year's usage, and I don't know specific amounts, but we'll say $30, $40. And then next year you got to pay the same fee again to keep on using it. The way I do it, when it used to be with LastPass, you could put it on anything, just like you're asking, and it was all free. But then LogMeIn, the company behind it, bought out LastPass. They said no more. If you use it on a phone, and it might apply to the tablet, and you want to use it on laptops, mini desktops, and desktop, full desktops, then you're going to have to pay this monthly fee. If you only use it on one type or the other type, it's still free.
So it's possible you could create two accounts then. You could create one user ID with a password for your laptops, and then you could create another account which you could use on your phone.
Okay,
You have all the same info, but I mean, different password account.
hang loose. In part, in theory, you're probably correct. They may be able to figure out from the IP addresses that you're the same person, and they may say, oh no, you're going to owe me money. But here's the other trick. Even though on my LastPass and anybody else's, I can export and import the content. How do I get it from, say, this desktop to my phone on a different account and import it there so that the two are in balance? And as I make changes, that means I got to make changes to both accounts. If I don't do that, I'm hosed. What's the purpose of the two accounts? Kind of follow along with that?
Yep.
So you have to understand there may be ways of cheating to get around paying any fee and have it on all your devices. Now, mind you, I've got over 3 dozen computers that have Lastpass on it absolutely free. Okay? But at the same time, too, if I take your ideology there of trying to create another account, and that's what we're going to do when I demo setting up a Lastpass next time, it's kind of a horse's ass way of setting it up, but the headache of maintaining continuity between accounts starts becoming a headache right off the bat. For example, even on a desktop, I did an export of the whole content of my Lastpass. It's a file. I put it onto a flash drive. If you got to either have the right adapter or the right kind of flash drive that can plug into my phone and be able to import that file to LastPass on that phone on a different account. So there may be a way of doing it, but it's putting the burden on you to keep the two accounts in sync. If you want to go through the hassle, be my guest. As I recall, they're not asking that much money, and it would be smarter from my perspective and most people's perspective just to pay the fee and do it the way I want to do it. Now, by the way, LastPass is no longer part of LogMeIn company. They've gone independent again, and I hope they stay independent. I didn't like some of the things that LogMeIn did with LastPass when they owned it. At any rate, this is the basics. There are lots and lots of other ones. Bitwarden's a good one. That's fairly new. At least I only knew about it starting last year sometime. It sounds like a potentially good one. It works on Linux as well as I'm pretty sure it works on Windows. So I would also assume it works on Mac, though I don't know that specifically. So if you want to look into Bitwarden, that's another one. OnePass is one, but I'm pretty positive OnePass and a few others I'm aware of. Almost all of them want you to pay a fee up front to even use it for 1 year. And then you either pay again for the next year or you lose access to it, in which case you better have a copy unencrypted, downloaded on your computer so that you can import it to some other password manager that you want to move to. A lot of them have cross capability for importing from other password managers. I'm not saying they're all going to work dead smooth, but in many cases they will. Any further questions? Peter, you must not like the meeting tonight because you missed a hell of a lot of it.
It's life here. I'm in the middle of a workday.
Ah, yeah. In the middle of a workday. Sure.
And I'm getting free stuff thrown at me.
Well, that's okay as long as it's money. Spendable money, not rubles. Anyway, all right. Really, I don't have anything else. If any of you guys got ideas or are willing to do a presentation, please contact me and let me know. We'll work something in. Bob may try and do some small presentations like he did tonight. I've got some things I want to get to. It's finding time. I've got to do some research. One of them that I want to get into is a program I found out about on Linux It may work on Windows and other OSs as well. And the original tool is command line only, but I know about graphical user interface, and I will be able to show you that. The little bit I had time to read up on it, it sounds very promising. It's so that if you got especially a spinning hard drive or a solid state drive that's starting to go bonkers on you, this may give you a real capability of recouping most, if not all, the information on the device and being able to transfer it to a new device, replacing the old one. There are no guarantees in life. If the controller on the device goes out, tough luck. The program ain't going to work, because without a working controller, which is the electronics on the back of a spinning hard drive, and there's something similar in a solid state drive, you're not going to get anything off that friggin' thing. An old trick for some companies that do recovery work is to find a same type of manufacturer's drive that uses the same controller. They take off the old controller off your drive, take off the controller of the other drive, fire it up, and copy everything immediately. Why? Because things can go south. So you get a one-shot chance of backing up what you didn't back up in the first place. I don't want the bill. You could be talking thousands of dollars. So it's a hell of a lot cheaper to do your own backups and have several copies. If you live in an area that's prone to tornadoes, hurricanes, extreme winds, which seems to be more and more common everywhere, where your house could also be affected by flooding because you're in a flood-prone area, or fires. Look at the people in Nebraska. Surprise, surprise! You got wildfires going. I think there's also in New Mexico the same thing, besides Colorado and the West Coast. So disasters can occur. If you got backups and you do it right, you get a new computer and you restore the backup, you're back in business. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that easy, because the backup on the old system, it's got to figure out how to work with the new system, and there could be missing drivers, there could be other conflict issues that have to be ironed out. A lot of the OSs, if you give them enough time, they will figure things out. They will give you options to download new updates that take care of the other issues they can't handle, such as new drivers. That's a very common one. So, and it used to be a big nightmare. Nowadays, Windows has gotten much, much better. Linux doesn't give a damn. You can take any copy of Linux and set it up on one machine, go to some other machine that could be halfway around the world that you've never seen before, and odds are you can make it work, because Linux will just adapt to the new hardware, and it's pretty good at it. I do that quite a bit even here with all my computers. So it's there's lots of flexibility for a lot of this stuff, but when it comes to privacy, you better use your head and try and prevent identity theft and from people stealing your accounts and doing things in your name. And hopefully for car loans, home loans, refinancing, etc., the institutions do due diligence and hopefully check out every little piece of information provided by whoever is trying to take out the loan. And if it doesn't match up to what that institution thinks it's supposed to be, hopefully they put up the red flag and say, you're not going to get it, and we're going to notify the person you're pretending to be about your identity theft, and they'll probably fill out a police report, and maybe one of these days you go into a jail. At least I hope so. Anybody got anything else?
Oh, I've got a question. So on this, okay, so I have a Gmail account,
Okay.
and I'll open up my computer, launch Chrome, go to my browser, open up Gmail, type in my password, and I'm in. On the Chromebook, the way it works is I open up the lid, it asks me for the password, which is my
Gmail account.
mail account, and then I'm right in. So if I want to change my password for my Gmail account and make it different, make a new password, make a longer password, if I do it on a regular computer, my Chromebook doesn't know that, does it? I have to, is there a process, one I should do before the other, or is there a...
Well, whatever you changed it to in Gmail account management, that's where you change it. Then you have to use the same password the next time you log into the Chromebook.
Oh, so it'll know to look. That's not internal in the Chromebook. It goes to the net and looks at
This
my
is it. This is like going on the internet, logging into any account. Let's say that you got a Walgreens or a CVS account. Fine. It has a password and a username. You gotta, if you change it, then you got to use the new one from then on, because it's not really saved, and it should not be saved in the in the browsers.
Right.
Even Chromebooks will offer that option. I turn all that off in the autofill for password, identity, location, or addresses. All that gets shut off. Never touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, Google uses a single logon for all their services. And starting at the end of May, early June, you will have to use two-factor authentication or their authenticator app.
And I'll tell you right now, you should always, on especially Gmail, be using two-factor authentication no matter what, because there are a lot of bad people out there deliberately looking for poorly secured Gmail accounts so that they can pretend to be you. And it doesn't sound like you're using two-factor authentication. There are a number of different ways of doing it. Bob brought up about the authenticator apps. You have an app, you put it on your smartphone, you bring it up, and you tell it what account you're going to be going to. In this case, it would be Google. And it'll start displaying a number that's good for 30 seconds. You have to quickly type that in when asked for it to log in and authenticate you to Google. And it gives you a couple seconds past 30 seconds, I'll tell you that right now. As long as you've been typing, it will accept whatever you put in and validate that number. Otherwise, you get a new number if you're too slow, and you have to do it all over again. It keeps turning over a number about every 30 seconds. and because I've used them before, I don't use them that much. This is what I use on all my Gmail accounts. I've got 5. This is a YubiKey. It plugs into a USB port, and it starts flashing a little blue light. And when I touch the gold dot, it sends a code that authenticates me because I went into my account management per Gmail account, and I set up 2-factor authentication, and I plugged in at that time this YubiKey, activated it. It recognized the code and stored it on that account. So anytime in the future when I go in and it challenges me, by plugging this back in, touching it, it says, ah, that's the right key. You're in. You're authenticated.
I didn't even realize that Gmail actually has. I know Bob talked about, it's at the end of May, but they actually have 2-factor authentication available, like right this second, right?
Almost every place worth its salt has 2-factor authentication, and more places that didn't have it are adopting it to try and prevent fraud, because fraud costs them. That ends up costing all their customers. Fraud is everywhere, and that's part of our inflation problem. So unless you tackle the fraud and the data breaches that are occurring, the inflation just keeps rolling. Year after year, keeps increasing. Everything costs more and more and more. Good luck. Anybody got anything else?
I set up the 2-factor authentication now, like a text to a smartphone or something. Is the one that's going to happen in May? Will I shortcut the one they're going to force me in May, or the one in May be more stringent?
It's unclear to me right now what's going to happen exactly there. Whether they're going to require their app, or whether they are requiring that apps that automatically access Gmail will need an app password, which I've already done, or whether they will just simply accept you using a smartphone as your second factor.
Yeah.
By the way, using the smartphone as a second factor is not a really good idea, but it's not a bad idea.
Well, here's the authenticator apps. I know besides Google, there's a Microsoft one, Lastpass has one, and there may nowadays be even more companies with an authenticator. Usually, it doesn't matter which one you use, you just have to have consistency. And the apps usually will keep track of where you use it. In other words, like, I use this app for Google. Let's say it was the Lastpass authenticator instead of Google's own authenticator. Bottom line is, when I open up the app, it will say I have Google that I'm using this for, and it will give me the authenticator code for Google, and it will then, I just type that information in, I'm in. It's not a big boogeyman. It's not that complicated. It's if it was a big complicated factor, it will fall flat on its face. They've got to keep it as simple and easy to do as possible. What I use goes back more than 10 years. And also, I've used some of the authenticator apps. I used to have an Amazon Prime account. I used it on that. So there are a number of different ways. SMS text codes or by itself is a bad practice, because They have a way of bad people getting that SMS text message. It's not encrypted, therefore it's not as good and secure as it could be, and therefore that's not a good way of authenticating. Even my bank used to use it, but they've changed to a different format. They know my phone number. They will call my phone. If I wasn't expecting the call, I'd hang up. If I am expecting the phone, I do what they say, and it unlocks my account. Done. On some, if you don't have a smartphone, like an old house phone, they will accept giving you the code by voice, and you can try using that. That's a little bit more secure than SMS text, because
Oh, is it?
you're not giving them the phone number to call. They already have what you gave them when you opened the account as your phone number. Now, if you ever change your phone number, it's up to you to go in, prove you are who you are to them, and they will change the phone number for you on their records. And therefore, they will contact you. If you have multiple phone numbers, usually they give you the last 2 digits. You have to give the 2 digits before the last 2 digits in order for them to say, okay, I'm going to call that number that I've got on file, area code, and the first 3 digits, and I will give you the code. Security is, if you think it's a nutty thing right now, we ain't seen anything yet. I do not like bioinformation, facial recognition, fingerprints, eye retina, etc., etc. If somebody has on a computer that gets breached, other people now have that bioinformation, can fake out the security to pretend again being you. What's to stop it? So I don't like bioinformation.
Well, don't worry. One of these days they'll have us all microchipped and it'll be tied to our DNA.
Yeah, I know. BS on that too. That again, that gets into bioinformation,
Yep.
and once it's out, there's going to be somebody who will figure out how to fake it out, and that's it.
Well, once it gets hacked, how are you going to reset it?
Yeah. And how do you reset your DNA?
Oh, there are ways now.
Yeah, not that extensive, because DNA makes you who you are.
You hear of CRISPR?
Yes.
Gene editing.
Yeah, but you can't, you're limited how much you can change in that.
That's true.
So the end result is, for the most part, you don't know what part of the gene, and I forget how long that damn thing is, but it's very long.
Yeah,
How much
yeah.
are they using in DNA identification?
Yeah, if it were a microchip, they could change that out.
At any rate, anybody got anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, not hearing anything else. Let's call it a night, and everybody